Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, August 14th, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Omar Ocampo joins us to talk about Zoran Mamdani's city-owned grocery store plan and why it can and has worked. And later in the show, Whitney Curry Wimbish joins us of the American Prospect and our own AM Quickie. We will be talking about private prisons raking in profits under Trump's deportation regime. Also on the program, Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich announces approval of a key West Bank settlement, explicitly saying that this will, quote, bury a Palestinian state. West Bank settler attacks have reached an all-time high as well. Pete Buttigieg, feeling the heat, tries to clarify his non-answer about the Gaza genocide with another non-answer. Yes, we have this whole... Maybe we'll get to that in the fun half. He said it to Politico. Putin is reportedly going to try to appeal to Trump's business interests in their Alaska meeting tomorrow. I mean... yes, 2 + 2 = 4. Turns out that Trump's pick for the Bureau of Labor Statistics head was at January 6th. That doesn't seem great. Meanwhile, July data on wholesale prices shows significant inflation, the highest monthly gain since June 2022. Remember the pro bono work Trump got those big law firms to agree to in their settlements? Well, now Trump wants them to negotiate his tariff deals for him for free. Those law firms, like, you know, the pro bono work was getting incarcerated people out of prison and stuff like that. No, just give the president free legal services for his tariff stuff. Insanity. Anyway, a man who threw a sandwich at an ICE officer in D.C. is being hit with felony charges. Trump wants to circumvent Congress to extend his 30-day police state performance art in Washington, D.C. The administration drops enforcement actions against 165 corporations. And lastly, at least 26 people have died after a boat carrying migrants off the coast of Italy sank. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's an Majority Report Thursday. Hello to Matt. Hello to Brian. Hello to everyone in the audience. We've got a great show for you. We'll start here with what is the biggest news of the day, which is this West Bank settlement news. Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich explicitly said yesterday, or earlier today, that Netanyahu and the Israeli government, alongside President Donald Trump and Israeli Ambassador Mike Huckabee, he explicitly says this in this video, agreed to revive this E1 settlement plan. But let's hear from Smotrich first, announcing this at this site. And he says it right in this clip, that this buries the idea of a Palestinian state. I will talk over this and read the captions for the podcast audience. Today we are finally fulfilling the promise and connecting Ma'ale Adumim to Jerusalem. our one and only capital, in strategic security and demographic connection, that ensures our capital remains united for generations to come. I want to first and foremost thank President Trump and his team, and Ambassador Huckabee, true friends of Israel, like we have never had in the world. Anyone who tries today in the world to recognize a Palestinian state will receive an answer from us on the ground. Facts on the ground. Not in documents, not in decisions or declarations, but in facts. In the facts of houses, in the facts of neighborhoods, roads, and more Jewish families will build lives. They will talk about the false Palestinian dream. We will continue to build a fulfilling Jewish reality. This reality ultimately buries the idea of a Palestinian state, simply because there is nothing to recognize and no one to recognize. I wish our Western press would accurately reflect the attitudes of the Israeli government, including the fact that this is widely supported within Israeli society. He said it right there. When I said facts on the ground, I didn't realize he was going to explicitly say the words facts. Matt, can you explain the origin of that phrase?
Well, I mean, just as he said it, regardless of anything like international law, saying things like people that have been removed from a land due to conquest have a right to return to that land. The facts say otherwise, the facts being just continued settlements of Israelis.
And this is significant in the facts on the ground that this would create. This isn't a plan called the E1 plan, which is really important to understand, and why this had been considered a bit of a red line for past Israeli prime ministers, and U.S. presidents had told them no up until this moment, in part because Donald Trump received $100 million from Miriam Adelson, and the quid pro quo, as was reported, was annexation of the West Bank. This is key to creating West Bank annexation facts on the ground. So let's pull up this thread here by Daniel Siedemann, who explains why this E1 plan is so important. Because I'll preface it by saying the Green Line, when people talk about the Green Line, that's the internationally recognized borders between Israel and Palestine that Israel has been in violation of since 1967, when they settled the West Bank, stole land, and you'll hear about occupied East Jerusalem. That is also when Israel occupied East Jerusalem, which is supposed to be Palestinian territory. They've been illegally doing so since 1967. And this E1 settlement, if we can pull this up here, the second part of this thread here it is. E1 has long been considered by virtually all of the international community as the doomsday settlement. E1 will dismember the West Bank into two cantons, making a viable Palestinian state impossible. It will seal off Jerusalem from the West Bank, preventing a Palestinian capital. Let's pull up this map. So you can see here, occupied East Jerusalem and E1 in yellow. And there's also the other settlement that is circled there that is on the western side of it. So E1 is in between a major Israeli settlement, to the east of it, and East Jerusalem is to the west, and E1 would be in the center. So that basically creates more and more land division between occupied East Jerusalem, and the West Bank. So they've done this already with the Gaza Strip. You know that if you look at a map, the Gaza Strip is separated from the bulk of Palestinian territory in the West Bank. They also divided leadership there to make it more difficult to have a Palestinian state. And they have been trying with this E1 plan to build since 1996. And Western leaders have repeatedly told them no. But now they've got their best friend in office, Donald Trump. And they're panicked about seeing France recognize a Palestinian state, Canada doing the same, which we know, again, that Palestinian statehood with the current facts on the ground is impossible unless they were to remove these settlers. But we also believe in a right to return and one democratic state, which is there's currently a one-state reality where Israel controls the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza, and they're committing genocide in one of those territories and then actively, acceleratingly, ethnically cleansing in the West Bank and illegally occupying that third piece in East Jerusalem for decades. So that is the significance of this story here. And
I mean, it's what we talked with Jasper Nathaniel about. The annexation is happening, and it isn't just Huckabee and Trump. Why was Bill Clinton talking about Judea and Samaria in fucking Michigan during the election? It's because largely the Zionist politicians that run our country, pro-Israel politicians that run our country, have accepted this. The only problem is how do you sell it to a world that finds it repulsive? But it also needs to be said that it doesn't just stop at the West Bank. There is Bibi is now being open about the vision of Greater Israel, which extends into Jordan and Syria, just across the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. There's this new article of the Times of Israel. Arab nations fume after Netanyahu says he feels connection to vision of Greater Israel.
Oh, why would they fume when he's saying
we're going to take their land
saying, I'm going to take your land?
You're next, and that is what will happen if Western powers continue appeasing or indeed being complicit with these land grabbers. I
mean, Israel's been occupying Syria currently. They have also been incurring into land in Lebanon in the north, let alone bombing civilians in that entire period in Lebanon. This is a rogue genocidal state that is trying in this period of time where they feel like they can accelerate their militarism to grab as much land and kill as many Palestinians as they possibly can.
This is just they've been clear about this. This is like the supposedly marginal fringe of Israeli society that we're not supposed to pay attention to, despite them being in the driver's seat for our entire lives. And everything else is just PR to try to deny and give a bedtime story for what's actually happening, which is there is a literal, what do you call it in the German? Lebensraum? That's what Israel's after. And it's just clear. There's a Hitlerian Nazi type march to take over and be belligerent with other countries. And we're saying, well, maybe it's very complicated, right? People judge it's not. It's very clear. There's just an invested interest in lying to people about it, because the more people see what's actually happening, the more people reject it.
Well, while we were on the Buttigieg, I wasn't planning on doing this, but it ties into our conversation here. I find it fascinating that Buttigieg had to walk his comments back here because his answer on Pod Save America was so disastrous and embarrassing and didn't meet the moment that he went to Politico to try to clarify this. This is their podcast playbook explaining, because I guess this was a conversation that was just over in text, explaining why Buttigieg, I guess, felt the need to say this to Politico.
Do you want to take a second stab at that?
Yeah, and I do think it's also interesting when you hear their framing of it, because obviously Politico is as DC Beltway as it gets, and if we're talking about facts on the ground about, Israel's standing in the United States, the way that they even talk about this as a liability for Buttigieg is a huge shift.
That you're going to want to read for both its 2028 implications and for a better sense of how opinions within the Democratic Party are shifting on Israel and Gaza. Recently, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg made an appearance on the influential Pod Save America podcast, after which he caught incoming fire over his response to a question.
Can we just chill with some of the language?
Yeah. I mean, fair enough.
Okay, sorry.
He was asked a simple question.
We've seen people be ripped apart by missiles.
Now?
Yeah, right. Words are violence, according to Zionists, though, so...
about Gaza, an answer which critics thought was especially mealy-mouthed.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Adam, because Buttigieg is known for being such an excellent communicator and really being able to distill and help digest some of these really
among you people, sorry.
complicated topic. So I was surprised by the story, but it looks like he's trying to do a little bit of cleanup and clarifying, and he is doing that with you, my friend. You talked to him, so I'm so curious to hear what his message was on take two on this question.
Is there like a liberal audio
he
filter?
sort of acknowledged that he wasn't as clear as he could have been. He said, quote, "I get it," end quote. He said, quote, "It's important to be clear about something this enormous and this painful. It's just that it's so enormous and it's so painful that sometimes words can fail." Essentially, I asked him the same questions that the PodSave hosts asked him, whether or not, if he was a member of the Senate, that he would have voted against sending additional arms to Israel. And he said, yes, he would have voted against that. I asked him where he was at on naming Palestine as a state. And he essentially said that he thought just words on a paper didn't have a lot of meaning, but he thought it should be a negotiated process. And then also asked him just about how he was processing these images out of Gaza.
Oh, as a father. Okay,
of
all right.
4-year-old twins. And
But I just wanted to get through that because the answer didn't change at all. He threw in, oh yeah, if I would have voted to block arms sales to Israel, I mean, it's already happened. I could have spoken out about it at the time as I'm trying to position myself to run for president.
What about Iron Dome?
Yeah, well, we know what that answer would be. So, what his backtrack was I was just so basically it's so big and hard of a topic that I was unable to articulate myself, that he was so overcome with emotion. I also I'm not going to commit to recognizing a Palestinian state, which is basically supposedly supposed to be the Democratic Party position for, I don't know, my entire lifetime. I was just too emotional about the topic to give a clear answer.
It's such a big topic in the sense that they gave me $190,000 to run my last presidential campaign, and I'm hoping they might do the same in the future. So I'm trying to not do anything to jeopardize that. It's very nuanced, this wanting money for my political ambitions thing.
Yes.
Allyship. We need to have allies that, get out the checkbook every 4 years.
No one's saying that. No poll says that.
I never really have an opportunity for that one, but that's a little underrated.
He's corrupt. Like, he's corrupt. Pete Buttigieg is bought by Israel.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, if you can't show courage on this now, he was probably shocked by the reaction. Why are these freaks shocked by the reaction? Israel's military action has an 8% approval rating with Democratic voters. Like, I don't understand this. Because, I mean...
They're corrupt.
But because they think that they can get out of it with some sort of, he can just speak his way out of it. And that's not how this is going to work, dog.
It's what got him to the dance.
Can't change his tricks, I guess. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Omar Ocampo. But first, a word from one of our sponsors. Tinted windows on cars are nice. You can have a little bit of privacy, although I guess you can't do it in the front seat. You're not supposed to be able to do that. But regardless, if you, in your fantasy world, could have a tinted window for your internet connection, well, you don't have to make that a fantasy anymore. You can have ExpressVPN that will do that for you. I got there in a very roundabout way, but you can see out, but they cannot see in. Wouldn't you like some more privacy online? Because all of your traffic flows through their servers, internet service providers, including mobile network providers, and they know about every single website that you visit. And in the United States, ISPs are legally allowed to sell that information to advertisers. Well, ExpressVPN reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure encrypted servers so your ISP cannot see your browsing history. Thanks to ExpressVPN. I got fantasy football on the mind. Thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode and for protecting me online. Visit expressvpn.com/majority and you can get up to 4 extra months free. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making it extremely difficult for third parties to track your online activity. ExpressVPN is super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. ExpressVPN is easy to use. Fire up the app, click on one button to get protected, and you can stay private on all of your devices, your phone, your laptop, tablets, and more. So you can stay private on the go. ExpressVPN is a go-to for me when I'm in an airport, when I'm at a a coffee shop, which I like to do some work there occasionally, and you just fire it up, click, you're good to go. Protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/majority. That's expressvpn.com/majority to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months free. expressvpn.com/majority. Link below in the video description on YouTube and in the podcast. expressvpn.com/majority. All right, quick break. And when we come back, we will be talking to Omar about Zoran's city-run grocery plan and why it's a good thing. We are back, and we are joined now by Omar Ocampo, researcher at the Program on Inequality and the Common Good at the Institute for Policy Studies. Omar, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, and a big shout out to all of your listeners and viewers.
Oh, thanks so much. It's a good way to start off the interview by sucking up to our audience. I would encourage that for all of our guests. Let's talk a little bit about food deserts before we get into the specifics of Mamdani's plan for New York City. Can you define what food deserts are and how many people are affected in this country by them?
Yeah, so interestingly, there's actually no universal definition for a food desert, but most scholars and researchers agree that food deserts are areas where the access to healthy and affordable food is limited. So a resident who lives in a rural community, their closest grocery store is more than 10 miles away, or for an urban resident is more than a mile away. And a mile away may not sound like a far distance, but when a household does not own a car or there's no reliable public transportation, then purchasing groceries could present a challenge. And it's this lack of access and this lack of infrastructure that contributes to food insecurity and hunger in the country. But interestingly, depending on the town or the neighborhood that you live in, food deserts can also be in a dialectical relationship with what are called food swamps. So even though there's a lack of nutritious food or access to fresh and nutritious food, there's an abundance of convenience stores and fast food restaurants. So, and this could have, adverse health outcomes for residents, like, increased rates of diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So, and one last thing I would want to say about food deserts is that this is a relatively new phenomenon. This didn't really exist 50 years ago. So it's, it's interesting to, try to look at, what some of the causes of food deserts are.
Well, the primary cause appears to be, at least to me, the fact that it's not profitable to put a grocery store in one specific location. And you write about how a lot of grocery stores are family owned and passed down to generations, even these kind of more private conglomerates. And it's quite difficult to compel them to put a store in a place where they're not sure they're going to make a profit or whatever. If you could just talk a little bit more about that dynamic.
Yeah, so I would identify two reasons, and the first reason is exactly that there's the lack of profitability. Food deserts tend to appear in lower income neighborhoods, and maybe the residents do not have the buying power to financially support their local grocery stores. And as a result, new grocers don't want to invest in specific neighborhoods. because they expect to lose money. Or even some of the grocery stores that are already there, they would prefer to like transfer to a more affluent part of the city or to a wealthy suburban neighborhood, because they can expect higher revenue, higher rate of return. But this just means that thousands of low-income neighborhoods are underserved and have to travel long distances for fresh produce. But the second reason is more of a structural reason for why food deserts exist, and that's because of market concentration and price discrimination. So 6 grocery chains control about 2/3 of the market, and this oligopoly power gives them advantage over smaller retailers because they have the resources to purchase food at a high volume from distributors, and they can pressure wholesalers to sell them food at a cheaper price. So this forces distributors to charge smaller grocers higher prices to offset the discounts that they give, let's say Whole Foods or Walmart. So the small store is forced to, buy, food at a higher price, and when they do, they pass on that extra cost to the customer, and that customer may say, well, it might be worth me driving 10 miles to, my Walmart to get cheaper food, and then the smaller grocers go out of business. So it's a bad cycle, and there's actually laws on the books to tackle this problem, but it's just not enforced.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm reminded of that Lena Khan in the last administration helping kill that Kroger's merger, which was a significant win, right? But that level of market concentration, it would have made things even worse. And this problem being national, I think, is really important too, because food deserts, as you say, can look different in an urban space where, I mean, asking somebody to walk a mile with groceries in their hands, especially if you're older or you're disabled, I mean, that's basically impossible. But it still basically has the same impact on the community, regardless of where it is in the country.
Absolutely. And one other thing about Lena Khan, she actually tried to resurrect this law that was called the Robinson-Patman Act. And she also filed a price discrimination lawsuit against Pepsi because they were offering lower prices to Walmart and higher prices to Walmart's competitors, but the Trump administration completely dropped it.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. This is why, it's interesting, the backlash against city-owned grocery stores in general, because even neoclassical economists accept that government intervention is appropriate when there's market failure or when the private sector is unable to provide a good or service. So the conditions right now are appropriate for public investment into a state-owned or city-owned enterprise. So in New York City, there are more than a dozen neighborhoods that are considered food deserts. And the alternative to not having city ownership is to deny these communities access to fresh and healthy food, which is completely unacceptable.
Yeah, so let's talk then about New York City more specifically. Or before we get to that, you write about, for example, the United States military having publicly owned grocery stores, and that potentially being a model for this, not just in New York, but if we're looking at municipally owned grocery stores around the country, perhaps we could see this as an example. Why are these military-owned grocery stores so popular and so successful?
Yeah, so the U.S. military has a commissary system. That's what they call their grocery stores, and basically the Department of Defense, or an agency within the Department of Defense, operates over 240 grocery stores, commissaries, and then 5 are actually located in New York State, including one in Brooklyn. And all the goods sold in these commissaries are not sold at a profit, but they do cover the cost of the goods. And one of the reasons why they're very successful is that basically the military, the Department of Defense, covers most of its operating costs. So basically, they're essentially subsidized. They do charge like a 5% surcharge on some of the products to help cover it, but mainly it's just the U.S. government covering the operational costs and ensuring that the military, then their families, they're able to get groceries that are normally 20 to 30% cheaper than what you would find in a regular grocery store. So there's one in Brooklyn, Fort Hamilton. That could be a model, and where the future mayor, if he wins, the Mandani, if he can go there and see how it works, learn the intricacies of the business, get some training, and be able to operate a city-owned grocery store in each borough.
So his proposal, New York City, you mentioned, has over 24 neighborhoods that are considered food deserts, which is astounding given just the size population wise of New York, but also like it's incredibly densely populated. So it feels like this could be a solvable problem. And Zoran's plan looks to do that.
Yeah. So he is proposing to allocate $60 million to basically, create city-owned grocery stores. From my research, he hasn't actually given that many details, but I actually consider that a strength because there are different ways to run a city-owned grocery store. So, for example, you could have, one of the more successful grocery stores that I have looked at was one in Kansas, in St. Paul, Kansas. There's a St. Paul supermarket, and it's the city that owns the property, the building, the business, and the inventory. It's all owned by the city government, and they've been in operation for more than a decade. So before that grocery store, the residents had to travel 17 miles. But then there's also other models where, the city can own the building. They can own the infrastructure. They can be in charge of maintenance and repairs and buying equipment, but then they could lease the property to maybe a worker co-op, or they could have a nonprofit, with industry expertise in order to, manage the daily operations of the grocery store. So it would still fall under the rubric of, something that's city owned, and and that also helps lower costs for, the nonprofit, because, they don't have to spend all these, resources on, maintenance, upkeep, and rent, and et cetera.
And the expense of it just feels like quite low when this is not a full subsidy for free food. This is basically just making it so that there is an option for folks that can be run in a way where the prices aren't jacked up on them, but also that like the city doesn't have to pay for that much, right? Because they're still paying for the goods.
Correct. The goal would be to ensure that the city, the New York City, is able to buy this food at wholesale prices, and this is the way. Basically, all five grocery stores, they can, purchase food in bulk. Or maybe even other smaller grocers can join, the city-owned grocery stores in order to buy, in order to form basically a purchasing cooperative, where other grocers are able to buy food with the city at high volume in order to get the same discounts that like a Walmart gets. So either Mamdani can create or join one of these, purchasing cooperatives. Or maybe you can even join the commissary in Brooklyn and place in their orders with their distributor to get the cheaper prices, because the military already has access to these cheaper prices because they buy so much in bulk. And basically, you're going to sell it at cost. So it's not a price control, because a price control says you can't charge over a certain amount. So so if the wholesale price is $7 today, but then next week it's $8, it will sell for $8. So it's not a price control.
So the question is why do then these grocers care, these grocery conglomerates? Why are they throwing a fit? I guess it's the guy, the D'Agostino heir or whatever, or the Gristedes guy. I forget who's the one that's going on Fox News all the time, and the Gristedes guy going on and freaking out about this. Like, if they're already not doing business in these areas, I mean, they're, I guess, concerned about the fact that they're going to have to compete.
Correct. And I think we need to remember that is one of the reasons why Mamdani's project is being carried out in the first place. Market forces in the private sector have failed to keep prices down. It is the market that has given the private sector the incentive to abandon working class neighborhoods and deprive them of healthy food options. And large private grocers have already failed in these communities. I also think that city-owned grocery stores can also generate a new conversation about market concentration and add some more competition in the market. So therefore, the local mom and pop and independently owned grocery stores are able to compete, because this is what it's about. It's basically to protect their market concentrations and their profits, which admittedly it runs at a small profit margin. But when you're a big store like Walmart, like the volume that you sell means that you have big profits.
Right. Well, that was mostly what I was hoping to discuss with you, but you also wrote another piece kind of debunking some of the capital flight concerns about Zoran Mamdani's proposal, basically, to slightly raise taxes on folks that are earning over $1 million to help fund certain proposals, including free buses. Can you speak a little bit about that myth and why it persists and why it is a myth?
Yeah, so this past spring I did write a report. Basically, the main focus was actually Massachusetts. So Massachusetts actually passed a 4% surtax on individuals with $1 million or more. So before this surtax, Massachusetts had a flat income tax. Everyone paid 5% no matter how much money you made. And immediately, as soon as it was proposed, everyone said, everyone's going to move to Florida. Everyone is going to avoid this tax. 4% tax is such a big burden on people who have $1 million incomes. So I looked at some of the wealth data, and there's actually, Massachusetts has actually seen an increase of, people with a net worth of over $1 million. And the reason why that is because, Massachusetts has a dynamic economy. The economic opportunity is there. One of the reasons, this is just a way for this myth that people are just going to leave. If there's a small increase in your tax obligation, is the reason why that myth exists is because they're trying to keep as much money of theirs as possible. I think it's an ideological project that they say, they want to deprive the state of resources. Interestingly, I can give a good example of, let's say, like Governor Ron DeSantis. He says, we don't want to raise a lot of taxes because then we'll start doing Democrat things in the state. So I think it's an ideological project. In Massachusetts, you can't deny that for some people, if you raise their taxes, they're going to leave. There's going to be inevitable, especially if you're young, especially if you're 27, you got rich off crypto or something. You might want to you're going to move. But the thing is that moving is actually something that younger people do and not older people. So because usually if you earn over $1 million a year, you tend to be a senior management, which means that you're more closely tied to your location of your place of business. That you have a family. So therefore, it's going to cost a lot to uproot. Basically everything. That you don't have to move to opportunity because you're already there. That's basically the crux of the argument, and that's basically what actually the data shows. So Massachusetts actually is raising more money than actually expected from the millionaire's tax, which actually suggests that the tax is working and people are not fleeing in droves. And now in Massachusetts, all kids in public schools, they get free lunch provided. Community college is now free across the state. In New York, there's already a progressive taxation system. I think if you were to just raise it 2% on people with $1 million, it won't have that much of an impact on their decision to move or not. If it was like 10%, then I think I might actually buy that argument. But 2%, it's that those who will leave will be statistically insignificant.
Well, I do think that when you talk about it being ideological, there's a fear that these folks have of these big cities throwing their weight around, because New York City is not going to change in cultural or financial relevance because of a small increase on millionaires. And this is that class of millionaires and billionaires saying, well, billionaires, I mean, God, they can eat this, although they will still complain. But like, they want to be able, but it's because they are going to say that they're complaining so much, is basically my assessment of it, because people want to be in New York, people want to be in LA, and then there's a lot of people that want to be in Massachusetts. It's a university hub and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, these are also cities with a lot of amenities, and that's what makes these cities attractive and why people want to move there, because A, there's the economic opportunity, and B, there's the good infrastructure, good public transportation. There's a lot of things to do. And I think the fear also on why they don't want increased taxation is because then other states will follow. So for example, after, Massachusetts, there's been some success, at raising revenue for 2 years in a row, again, raising more than what they expected. Rhode Island is now proposing their own version of a tax on the top 1%, and this is causing panic amongst the anti-tax movement by saying that you're just going to destroy the tax base of the state. But then you just look up your neighbor, they've done it, and Massachusetts is wealthier, and now they're providing some public services. To the city. And that this is also another important point, is that you got to make sure that people see the investment from the tax revenue that you collect from this tax. And in Massachusetts, you're seeing it. They're expanding public transportation infrastructure. As I mentioned before, their community colleges are free. School lunches are free. They're wiping off the debt of the MBTA, which is the public transit system in Boston. So, it's all a myth, and it's basically to ensure that the anti-tax movement, they're just against anything that requires taxation.
Yep. Well, Omar, really appreciate your time today. Researcher at the program on inequality and the common good at the Institute for Policy Studies. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, folks, quick break. And when we come back, we will be talking to Whitney Wimbish, staff writer at the American Prospect, co-writer of our own AM Quickie. We'll be talking about private prisons and how they are raking it in under Donald Trump. Be right back. We are back, and we are joined now by Whitney Curry Wimbish, staff writer at the American Prospect and co-author of the AM Quickie, which I really, really recommend people check out. I've recommended it to people like, some folks don't want to, say, have a subscription to the New York Times anymore because of the way they've covered the genocide in Gaza. And I'm like, this is how you get your news, AM Quickie. So great work on that, Whitney. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you have been writing about Trump's immigration policies, and specifically, we can start with one of your more recent stories on this, which is about how private prisons are just raking in money right now. You open your piece talking about the earnings call that they recently had for their second quarter. Perhaps we can start there just to give people a sense of how much money these companies are making right now.
Sure. So these are companies, Geo Group and CoreCivic, that the U.S. government uses to run its detention centers. And a lot of times they own the building, and then other times the U.S. government owns the building and they will provide the services. These are referred to as private prison companies, but they are public companies. So that means that you can listen into their earnings calls and you can read their financial documents and see who's making all this money. They had their second quarter earnings calls and they're doing really well because they see the Trump immigration terror campaign as a really long-term beneficial thing for them. Like, they're planning years and years out to stuff their prisons full of people, to do it at the lowest cost possible so that they can turn a buck for their shareholders. And they've just gotten $45 billion more from the US government to do even more of this. I just got off the phone with a couple doctors who specialize in infectious diseases in immigration detention, and they were telling me that they expect that, that money is just going to be used to make more money. It's not going to be used to improve the conditions or anything like that. So these guys are making a ton of money. They have revised their outlook upward. That means that they are telling their investors that there's more good news ahead. Even
the quote you had from the Geo Group founder was, quote, "unprecedented growth opportunities in front of our company," is what they're saying. And they're right.
Yeah, they're right. Mm-hmm. And I think, they are talking about it in terms of beds. So they're adding more beds, and they expect that these beds will be filled by a certain point. And then after that, they have a plan to make more money through tracking devices to put on people who aren't eligible for detention, but who are easy targets. They want to be able to just monitor their every move and make sure that they know where they are at all times. So one company has purchased hundreds and hundreds more like ankle bracelets. And another company is expecting that their long-term way to make even more money is to buy vehicles so that they can kind of shuttle people around. We've already seen that, these detention sites are getting overcrowded and people are being moved from one spot to another, often without their attorneys or their families knowing. And so one of the companies thinks that that's the way to go. They're going to increase their revenue by making themselves available to just kind of shuffle people around.
Yeah, so that was Geo Group you were writing. I have that down. And they're basically, this is on the heels of some reporting I read in the Washington Post, that basically they're trying to exponentially expand their ankle monitoring operation for migrants. There's some tens of thousands, I think, who currently have this ankle monitoring an ankle monitor with immigration, but they want to make it, their target is nearly 200,000.
Yeah, like they see this massive population that they can just
surveil. Yeah.
It's hard to accept that this is reality.
Right. And the money that the federal government is providing for these companies, can you expand a little bit on that and how much of these earnings that they're so excited about are subsidized with our tax dollars?
I don't have insight into how much at this point their earnings are subsidized by our taxes, but their budget is their main customers are the federal government, so we can bank on a lot. The thing that I found kind of broke my brain a little bit was in some of these corporate filings that both companies have to produce. You can see who the top earners are. They will list out which executives are the highest paid and who they are, their background, where they come from. And there is this revolving door between these two companies and the ICE employees and the Bureau of Prisons. And so, you can spend a career in ICE and then go make money working for one of these companies. And I don't know, it's gross.
One of those folks, people will be familiar with Tom Homan, who seems to himself be getting quite rich off of Geo Group, one of the companies that you write about. Can you speak about his relationship with them?
So Tom Homan is an interesting character. He is an old friend and former colleague of David Venturella. He is obviously helping run Stephen Miller's deportation campaign, but he's also drawing compensation of about $6 million. Oh no, that's Venturella. He drew compensation of $6 million to consult for Geo Group. And Homan has kind of earned this unannounced pot of money running as a consultant for that same company. So, these guys have like a lot of incentive to expand detention and stuff as many people as they can into these centers and really immiserate immigrants in this country who make this country run.
Right. I mean, gosh, I'm old enough to remember when Dick Cheney's relationship with Halliburton was considered a major conflict in his incentives for the Iraq War. But even then, he at least made efforts to pretend like, oh, I have my distance from Halliburton and those profits at this point. Like, Tom Homan is serving in the administration and is taking fees from one of these private prison companies. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, as a consultant. Yeah, and these companies also, at least in, I think it's Geo Group. Let me go back to my story. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Sure. I believe it is Geo Group if you're talking about Venturella, yeah.
There's also kind of this like family tie there. Like that company employs members of the same family. In one case, the son-in-law of the top guy, and he's making $500,000 a year, or he did according to the last filing. So it's just really gross, you guys.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. You also have been doing some reporting on what's been happening here in New York City, down on Federal Plaza, where Brad Lander has been doing some great work as a monitor and going to support some folks at these immigration hearings. Speak a little bit about what you've been observing there as a reporter, because it's been a bit of a central focus of when people have been getting deported, they've been going to these hearings there, and it's been in the news a lot.
Yeah, it's so jarring to listen to an earnings call where these guys are very self-congratulatory and they're so excited, and the analysts who are on the call are congratulating them about the great returns and the sunny future. What's happening in immigration court at 26 Federal Plaza that is enabling those folks to have such a great time and make all this money it's horrific. It's hard to accept that it is happening before my face. Like, people will go into a hearing thinking, okay, I'm showing up, I'm doing what I'm supposed to, I'm coming to this hearing, I've been coming to hearings, and I'll do my next thing and then go back home. And they'll get an extension or a new date or some progress made on their asylum claim or, their another claim to stay in the country. And they'll come out of one of these immigration judges' courtrooms, their little rooms, and just be surrounded by a pack of guys with masks on, weapons, the whole thing. And the guys, they kind of have changed their strategy over the course of the couple months that I've been going. They used to follow their targets into an elevator and not say anything, and then detain them there where nobody would be watching. There wouldn't be any reporters. There's always a ton of photojournalists. Shout out to all the photojournalists at 26 Federal Plaza. They're there every single day. That was one approach. That has kind of shifted a little bit, where now they will just flock around someone as they come out of the detention center, and then they'll hustle them as fast as possible into a stairwell or into an elevator and take them wherever they take them. Sometimes they get taken to the 10th floor, which is the kind of like makeshift detention site that was recently reported as being just like horrific conditions. And I think a judge, not yesterday, but the day before, said that ICE has to immediately improve the conditions because they are so disgusting. And
that's not in Alligator Alcatraz or anything like that. These are conditions just in basic immigration holdings.
Yeah, and on the 10th floor, that area is not meant to be used as a holding place for days and days and days, but people are being held there for weeks. And it's just a cement box. There's no place to sleep. The toilets are out in the open. There's no medical facility. People are being denied their medication. Girls and women aren't being given enough like sanitation pads. One of the findings that came out of in the lawsuit recently, the one that requires now that they clean up their act immediately, girls were just like bleeding through their clothes because ICE agents gave them 2 pads for the entire room. So like really disgusting, just like inhumane, cruel treatment. And there's really no rhyme or reason that you can tell on the outside why someone gets snatched. The pro bono lawyers and the court watchers who are there to help are kind of like, we don't know what's on this list or what makes somebody a target. But once you get put in this system now, unless you have an attorney or unless you have somebody looking for you, you are basically disappeared. It's just, you're in the system. No one knows what happens to you. It's hard to get any information about people who are hidden in there. I tried to go to the 10th floor to see the conditions for myself. You kind of come up through the elevator and you get dumped out into this little hallway, and there are big doors on either side. And within seconds, there were 2 agents who were like, "Are you lost? What are you doing here?" And, I couldn't get in and see it for myself.
And the catch-22 of it that you describe as well is that people are trying to do the right thing to avoid the deportation, and they're going to their hearings and they show up, and the same thing is happening to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are folks who are following the rules. They're not the worst of the worst or whatever the Trump administration keeps saying. These are people who are following the rules, who don't have money for an attorney. There's no guarantee for an attorney in immigration court the way there is in criminal court. You can have one, but you have to pay for it yourself, or you can, find a pro bono one if there's a service in your area. Those folks are really overworked. So it's, a lot of people show up alone. I went to and sat in a judge's room a few days ago, and one of the things that's happening is that people just aren't showing up anymore. They can make the calculation themselves that even if they want to do the right thing, it's too dangerous. So they're just not coming. The problem with that is that a judge can then issue an immediate order for removal, and then it's anybody's guess what happens. You might be at work and ICE could show up there. They might knock on your door in the middle of the night. So there's really no great solution. But in this judge's courtroom that I was in, 0 people had an attorney. And the judge and the clerk who was working for him were both trying to do everything they possibly could to give these guys a chance to walk out of the building safely. They were, repeatedly asking people, do you want more time to get a lawyer? Do you know how to get a lawyer? Like, trying to walk people through what the process was. And even in instances where the judge said, you have a pretty credible asylum claim, I'm going to grant you a hearing date for 2026. These people walked out of the courtroom thinking that they had good news, a whole year to find legal representation, and they were just snatched.
It's just absolutely, I mean, they're trying to create this level of anxiety on purpose, and the damned if you do, damned if you don't dynamic here is especially cruel. But that's what we have in this administration. Whitney, I really appreciate your time today. People should all follow your work over at the American Prospect. Read your pieces. I mean, people should be following the Prospect by now if they're listeners of this show. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Emma. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
You too. Bye. All right, well, with that, going to wrap up the first hour of this show. Head into the fun half, the not free portion of the show that you can get access to if you become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com.
Oh, so it's free.
Well, yeah, I mean, secretly. But you can IM the show.
Pretty open. It's like a Lindsey Graham style open secret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get membership, so thanks for that. But you can IM the show. No, I know. I mean, it's... oh, whoa, it's Brandon. Hey, no, it's all right. Brandon from The Void.
Yes, this week I'm broadcasting live from the Islamo-Communist Republic of Londonistan, where Shah is Shah the right word for Sadiq Khan? It doesn't really matter. Sultan Sadiq Khan rules with a mighty fist, and everyone is forced to reduce their congestion. Hello.
Hello. I'm sure what you said made sense, but I don't know if I could follow any of it. So
it looks like you've transcended.
Yes.
That's what it's like to be in the Islamo-Communist Republic of London. It's just one big void that we all live in. Where I'm just pure energy now.
You're connecting us from a literal cloud, not just the cloud.
Exactly.
Right.
Once Sultan Mamdani becomes the mayor of New York, you will be fortunate enough to experience this exact same level of transcendence.
I mean, you're really selling me on it. It looks heavenly there, but it might just be because you're in Europe and not here in the United States, which sucks now.
Oh no, it's great there.
Oh yeah?
I don't know.
I'm not so sure about that. What's happening over on the discourse?
Well, I am taking this week off from streaming since I am not in my normal location, hence everything. But we will be back next week, both live and in color, on Monday. So now's a great time to run over and join the discourse with Brandon Sutton on YouTube or Twitch and get caught up on our last few streams. We've learned a lot about the shape of the earth recently. We've learned a lot about like AI, extreme weather. So, perfect time to catch up.
We're still learning stuff about the shape of the earth, huh? I thought we pretty much had that down.
I know. Honestly, whether you believe it's flat or spherical, we're learning new stuff about the shape of the earth every day.
There's good ideas on both sides of that. All right, check out the discourse and say hello to Matt Binder, who is a newsletter author, has his shows too. Busy guy. What's happening over there on your end, Binder?
Hey, how are you? Good. Just go to youtube.com/Matt Binder. Make sure you're subscribed there. Leftist Mafia tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Disruptionist.com to subscribe to the newsletter. And make sure you do all that.
All right, do it.
Where is Brandon streaming from?
Oh,
we're not gonna rehash that.
We did.
It was already okay.
You missed the bit.
Yeah, no, I can't remember everything I said there.
But we do have Dave from Jamaica writing and saying Brandon is now consumed by the light of Allah. So that's a bit of a summary of where we were at. All right, guys, we'll see you on the other side. See you in the fun half.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait, whoa. Look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
What?
Twerk, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and
that's what we call the biz.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Twerk, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Twerk,
Wow.
Sushi. I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Twerk.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Twerk.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid.
Had this debate 7,000 times.
A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Twerk. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but
I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job.
twerk.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
Willy Wonka twerk.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered to twerk?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered to twerk?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered to twerk?
That's a real thing. That's a
poker with the boys.
I think he might be blowing it out of proportion. Real thing. That's a
poker with the boys. That offered to twerk?
That's a real thing. That's a
poker.
Let's go, Joey.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Take it easy, Tim.
Twerk, sushi, and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Delusional.
Twerk,
Deluded.
sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Poggers.
Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the majority report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. You don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is a pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Trump. Violet.
Twerk.
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people, love it.
That's where my heart is. So I wrote my honors
thesis about it.
She wrote an honest thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You are to the right of me on foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like, period.
We are back. That granola bar is still going down. So, someone else say something.
Oh boy, I wasn't expecting it to be that.
I quite like granola bars, even if when they do turn like sand into your mouth. So I really
these are one of our sponsors actually. Beautiful Day granola. So I'm having a little bit of it. I got a little hungry.
Watch Harry Emden.
Wow, Emma now fitting the product placements in the content. No more stopping for a commercial break. Wow,
I know. Look at that.
That's
I'm
a
good little capitalist.
That's a well-integrated ad read. I think my favorite ad reads though are the ones from like the Patrick Bet-David show, because he will really seamlessly integrate them into like what they're talking about. They'll just be talking about like Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell getting out of jail, and he'll go like, that reminds me of this new I forget what he pitches. It's like a lemon. It's like a lemon oil thing. It's very weird.
That's so seamless. Oh, Brandon, is your mic on? Can you tap it? Oh, okay, yeah. You just sound a little different to me just because of you're in a different spot. No, it's fine. It still sounds clear, but go on, Binder.
The best ad read I've ever seen is still that Brett Cooper one where she just randomly it integrates it into the content, turns to the camera, totally new camera shot, does the ad read, and then back to the regular content at camera one. It was incredible.
Expert.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Daily Wire really doesn't know what they lost when they lost her. I mean, they are hurting ever since losing her, I feel like.
Let's just have some fun here. We'll start off with this clip. Newsmax it wants you to know that fun is back in America. Fun is back. You can say the R word again.
Oh, okay.
Which is that's really fun for them. But I guess I'm a little perplexed at the example that they chose here. I'll just let the video play and then explain why this is insane to me.
Over the last few weeks, students are heading back to college, particularly in the South. They start early down there. And one of the great American traditions for female college students is rushing a sorority. They don't do this in China. They don't do this in Russia. They don't do this in Namibia. They do it in America. And that should be okay. It should be okay to celebrate things that are uniquely American. But over the past several years, we haven't done that. We've been scared. Scared of the backlash, scared of who we might offend. We've been told that what you're seeing here is wrong. We were told there wasn't enough diversity.
Can I just say, didn't these start under Biden? In the last 4 years?
Can you just take it off for what you're seeing? They want to tell you that boner that you have from this video is wrong. You don't feel shame about that boner, do you?
When have sororities ever been like the downtrodden alternative thing? At least when I was going to school, 20 years ago now, sororities and fraternities were like what the frat boys and the preppies and all those mainstream cool kids did. And
I was in a sorority. I was in a sorority.
No, you seem like you were the type.
I was, and honestly, now I'll talk about it a little. First of all, I was at a liberal arts school in the Northeast where it's a lot more relaxed than what the videos they're showing is like. Those big schools in the South, like Clemson, University of Alabama, it's insane. It's also incredibly segregated and racist, which is what they're alluding to there. But sorority rush was one of the worst times in my life. It was one of the worst experiences where you have to make small talk and suck up to people to get invited to the right sorority and stuff like that, and make so much and socialize all the time. And you feel immensely insecure because you are basically being judged by your appearance or your manners in ways that are not comfortable for me. And I was just doing it because it was the only social life on campus. But
so much I would love to know about being a 21-year-old girl.
I'm
really
the
is.
Newsmax producer who spent all day on TikTok downloading all of these Rush dance videos and deciding editing them together. Look, I had a tough day at work. Okay,
but it was
really is incredible
fun.
though that
I mean, it's so obvious. This is just oh, how can we get eyeballs on a segment? Oh, here's a bunch of videos of young girls dancing. Let's just talk over it.
Yeah.
I don't really remember. People are saying they were freaking out about this when Biden was president. I don't really remember that. It just kind of feels like they like an opportunity to share these videos.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is.
Go
ahead.
They do have sororities in other countries, obviously sororities in other countries. But I think to your point, this is mostly just about cheap. I hate to say goon or slop for their audience, but that's what it is. It's one step away from Girls Gone Wild. But they want you to feel whiteness is under assault, even though a lot of sororities are black. Even though I always hate that stompy yard stuff, and that it's uniquely American when it exists all over the world. Granted, from an American or Western civilization tradition, right? Greek life, but it's not unique to America anymore. It hasn't been for decades.
These are the kids though who these were the rich, the cliche, classic, rich, popular, snobby parents got them into school from their connections kids.
Definitely.
These are the kids that traditionally Americana-esque culture describe this as these are the kids that the subcultures, the countercultures, the punk kids, the goth kids. They did not like these kinds of prep school kids. And now here's Newsmax trying to pretend that the sororities are actually
under
the
attack.
New punk rock. They're the new punk rock.
Yeah.
They're the underground. Are you kidding me?
Just to give people a taste of what it was like, I joined, and I really was less interested in a lot of the other stuff in the sorority, and I was just wanted to smoke pot and hang out with my friends, and an older girl asked for a meeting with me to talk about my lack of attendance at parties. So that's the kind of thing that this experience is like, and it's definitely not cool. But they think it represents whiteness or something like that. We'll keep going. And it does often and black sororities, they don't get there.
I mean, Alabama hadn't desegregated their sororities until the Obama administration.
Yeah.
But over the past several years, we haven't done that. We've been scared. Scared of the backlash, scared of who
they did this last year, buddy. Okay.
might offend. We've been told that what you're seeing here is wrong. We were told there wasn't enough
Coyote Ugly is
by
wrong.
my wife. But all that is changing. And it's changing because of what happened in November.
Our wives are saying you
What you're
can't like
looking at
this
are
stuff.
sorority sisters competing with other
Bookmark it.
sororities at other schools all over the country, making these videos to try and attract new members
This was
fall.
happening
It started at just
years
one
ago.
college, Sisters
It's happening
Choreograph
right
a
now.
Dance, and now it's a trend that has only grown from there.
This is a TikTok trend. This is the thing you guys are trying to ban.
Right.
Also, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these conservatives would have viewed these sorority girls dancing in risque clothing. They would call them whores just a year or two ago.
Also, they don't want women to go to college. They don't want women to be in college unless they're looking for men. So how I guess you can you could say
that's why this is now approved.
yeah. But still, if they had their way, they wouldn't be there at all. They would, the moment
Right.
you turned 18, you would be married to a 24-plus-year-old man who works at your father's company. So,
But that's what these Southern sororities are like, though. They really are almost like an extension of a debutante kind of structure, where that's why sororities want to build up their the collection of attractive women or something like that, because they can be the wife factory down in those like southern schools.
Well, I think some of them are like that probably, but I don't want to paint the sororities themselves with such a broad brush, even if it couldn't be true, because because I really want to just condemn Fox News for like making this segment as opposed to like judge women for like Newsmax. Oh God, that explains even more better. But as opposed to condemn women for going to like college and joining like organizations and dancing, like broadly speaking.
Fair enough.
Has Newsmax confused Joe Biden with John Lithgow in Footloose? Is that what's going on? This is
just the new. This is like just the new, which is so funny because like the new thing on the right is just to like everyone acts like the mayor of one of those towns in an '80s movie, or like everyone acts like a principal of like the high school from like a Molly Ringwald film.
Yeah.
But like then like they project that onto like the left, like we're the ones who don't want women dancing or like whatever.
Yeah.
Right. This is
It's only
you know,
grown
I do want. What was that?
I was just playing the clip some more. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I do wonder if you look at like how these schools voted though, in 2024. I wonder how many of them actually, as conservative as Newsmax is trying to present them as, I wonder how many of these schools where the sorority is located in the district. I wonder how those districts voted. I'm gonna guarantee the vast majority of them voted Democrat.
Yeah.
To dozens of colleges. You can't watch these videos without smiling and maybe wishing that you were in college, maybe wishing that this could be you again.
No,
and that should be okay. After 4 years of Joe Biden and DEI and tremendous reverse discrimination, especially against white people, especially against white men, fun is back. When people say America's healing, they're typically talking about the border being closed or inflation coming down or common sense coming back to the culture. And it's all of that. But more than
that
anything,
just gave it all away right there for sure. Like if it wasn't obvious to begin with, like these are videos of young, mostly white women dancing. And he's saying fun is back for white men, young white men especially.
Yeah.
This is what this is to
picked.
them. This is eye candy for them. This is not about the women being able to express themselves. Again, let's just look at it from their point of view. Obviously, we know young women are able to express themselves previous to this, to the 2024 election. But it's their version of events isn't that young white women are now free. No. It's white men of all ages can now ogle at these young white women dance.
Exactly.
I can tell you when fun returned into this broadcaster's life was in 2009 when his homicide charges were dropped after he killed somebody in Cambridge with his car.
Wow.
Wait, is that for real?
That's Rob Finnerty. Yeah, that's this guy.
And there's another Rob Schmidt on Newsmax, who looks exactly like him. But now we can remember Finnerty is the
Cambridge mass
got out of vehicular manslaughter guy.
He was
what?
But I mean, like I will say this is to Matt's point before the vehicular manslaughter point was made. But that's like peak right wing content. Like you want to make people horny and mad. Like they look at this, they get turned on. Physically, and then they get like angry, and that confuses them, and then they
AOC
just start, like,
dancing. Remember AOC dancing? She danced in college, and they were saying how disgusting that video was because that's the anger, though, but directed at the woman of color, obviously.
Well, the issue is that
or
AOC
Democrat.
became a congresswoman. I think if any of these women want to become a congresswoman, then all of a sudden they'd be disgusting whores. And then that's the issue. Yeah, they got to know their place. That's the thing. They could dance like this, but they got to know their place. If you got aspirations, you shouldn't have aspirations, period, if you're a woman. But if you do, you got to think 20 years ahead. You can't be doing this.
Aspirations have to be aspirations, aka show off your ass for the Newsmax audience. Number 13, and yet white women keep voting Republican. They're low-key the worst in all of this. I unfortunately, yes, white women are have a long way to go. Joe Banks.
Is there more to this video?
No, that's it. Joe Banks says there was a documentary called Rush that streamed last year. It was all about the process of getting into a sorority at the University of Alabama. I meant to watch that, but I didn't feel like reliving that part of my life. Krusty Gnome, Big Joel did a video about Bill Maher where he explains this exact phenomenon. This is what the woke took from you, and now it's back now, losers. I want to check out that Joel video because he's great. Texter says, am I crazy or were conservatives calling these girls sluts and fatherless 2 years ago?
So I would like people to find evidence of that because I want to see it. Like I don't really remember that. Did that happen, or are people just saying that happened? Because I mean, see examples.
They're not principled about any of this. Is I think the point. Like they don't have a principled belief about what women should and should not do. Oftentimes, it's all about like what they're doing being for the service of men. And as long as it can be framed as that, like, and it's not challenging or like making, the idea of masculinity like invalid in their sense, they can dance, they can like work in the workplace. It depends on like the person you're talking to, but like generally they're just not principled about this stuff.
I'm speaking as a producer who would like to show that stuff if it does exist, but I haven't seen people surface good examples of people when it was Biden saying this is degradation, now saying it's MAGA. I haven't seen it that cleanly.
Well, I haven't seen that either. But the idea that like, if they see a black or brown person dancing, it's like, oh, this disgusting twerking. And then here you have white girls doing the same thing. And it's
who
completely
invented these
fine.
dance moves.
Yeah.
While we're on the subject of male policing of femininity and that being the way that, right now patriarchy is kind of making a resurgence, in part because it's all about how men can define what womanhood is or what's attractive, and that is what womanhood is. It was always there in the way that like the conspiracy theories about Michelle Obama were promulgated by right-wingers, that she was secretly a man because she was a black woman, and it was a way to degrade her femininity and then degrade her humanity by extension. We see it most acutely right now in the context of the discussions around trans people and the fixation on the right about trans women in particular. One, because it's a rejection of patriarchy, and if you are a trans woman, you were had male sex organs at birth and you rejected that, or you live or identify as a woman. Right-wingers see that as a rejection of the more dominant and more powerful sex of maleness. But what they also don't like is the idea that they can't that trans women, they might be attracted to them, and that freaks them out too, and that they can't place the boundary of basically bearing children on their definition of femininity. And so you don't hear a ton about trans men, but you hear a lot about trans women, and that's because of these notions of hierarchy. And there have been a lot of really smart folks that have said, all right, so all these bathroom bills where you're going to have to prove the gender, or with girls, trans girls in girls sports, where you're going to have to basically show to folks what your genitalia is, to like these girls' genitalia, to prove that they can participate in these sports. Like, where does this go? Well, we have this story out of Minnesota here. Minnesota teen says server forced her to prove her gender in restaurant bathroom. Let's read a little bit of this. A Minnesota teenager filed a charge of discrimination against a Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant Tuesday, alleging a server followed her into the women's restroom and demanded she prove she was a girl. Garika Murda, 18, went to a dinner in April with friends in Owatonna, about an hour south of Minneapolis. When she went to the restroom, a server followed her inside and banged on the stall door while saying, "This is a woman's restroom. The man needs to get out of here," according to Gender Justice and Minnesota Gender Equality Organization that filed the charge on Mudra's behalf.
I wonder which way she voted.
Yep. Mudra, a biracial lesbian who is not transgender, said that she has been in similar situations before when people have suggested she's in the wrong restroom, but that when she tells that she's a woman, they leave her alone. I mean, that's in and of itself harassment because she's a lesbian. But however, when she came out of the stall at Buffalo Wild Wings and told the server, "I am a lady," she said, that server responded, "You have to get out now," Gender Justice said in a statement. Mudra said she felt she had to prove to the server that she is a woman, so she unzipped her hoodie to show she has breasts. The server didn't say anything in response, but left the restroom, Mudra said. She made me feel very uncomfortable. After that, I just don't like going in public bathrooms. I just hold it in. I want to be able to use the bathroom in peace. So this is... What are trans people also going through right now? Afraid to use public bathrooms. I mean, this is about erasing... When they talk about erasing transgender ideology from society, it means erasing society... It means erasing trans people from society. It means basically making it so that it's very difficult for them to exist, to be in public space, to do the things that everybody is supposed to be able to do to live their lives. And it is going to affect all people across the LGBTQ spectrum. So these traitorous, gay men like Dave Rubin to other LGBTQ people who burn the bridge behind them. Well, look out, because they're coming for gay marriage next. Kim Davis is already filing a suit. And the Supreme Court, I would not be shocked if they hear it. They are using the same logic that they used to overturn Roe v. Wade, which was basically like, this case was wrong. We've decided. Same arguments being made right now for Obergefell.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this exists at the intersection of a lot of identities that the right are trying to attack, or at least trying to find an entryway into attacking, now that it's been made a lot less politically advantageous to openly be seen attacking LGBT people, besides the T, obviously, women. This is obviously also a way for them to have more ability to police women's bodies, to demand that women prove that they have the right genitals to them, which is just like asking for predators to, be predating on women, under the excuse of protecting them. And of course, Black people as well, with Black women acting as a nexus there as when it comes to and even in this story, being confused for men due to racial implicit and explicit bias towards what it means to be traditionally feminine, and how it's often been excluded from women who have traditionally Black or Black seeming features.
Yeah, right. And I don't know. I just keep thinking... Go ahead.
And I think Matt hit it on the head before. This isn't something that your average everyday, I guess you would call them normie, thinks about. This isn't something where someone who's not politically engaged and a conservative, a right winger, would accost someone in the bathroom and demand to know what gender they are. Clearly this is someone who is... Yeah. We know where their political ideology lies, and we know that they why they feel this way. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. That I really don't think everyday people are going out doing this, but if this is a growing thing, we're gonna have a real problem, because it's not just trans people or even LGBTQ people or someone who's gay or lesbian. This is not something they're going to only deal with either. We've also heard of plenty of stories of completely straight cis women going through the same thing. Yeah,
cis, but yes,
right. Yes.
You mind your fucking business. This is
right.
Even before I knew my North Dakota teenage ass really knew what trans people even were. There's people that are, what was the sort of euphemisms for it back then? Androgynous or something like that. Yeah. It's you just keep it moving. If there's an assault, it doesn't matter what the gender identification of the person who commits the assault is, then you get the authorities. You don't go in banging on the stall saying, you need to get out of here because I place you as... Because the truth is, all this shit that Matt Walsh has been saying about what is a woman, that question that they keep asking, they don't fucking know. It's actually harder to determine this stuff than they like to act. And it turns out they can be really fucking wrong and chase a woman into a stall and then have to have her flash her breasts at her in order for her to finish the confrontation. It's disgusting. They're freaks.
A teenager. She's a teenager. She's 18 years old. I still consider her... She could be in high school.
Exactly. That's a kid.
That's a kid.
This is disproportionately going to be used to predate on children, because young girls have less defined secondary sexual characteristics, and some of them are playing with gender performance, and even if they're not trans or looking to be trans or questioning their sexual identity, they just resemble younger men more frequently. Younger boys more frequently, and right wingers know this. They know this because that's why they oftentimes skew their sexual preferences towards women who lack those features, and so it's a lot. It's a lot for them. And I agree with Matt's point that I think there are very few bigots who actively care about this, which is why the right wing has to lie constantly about what's going on when it comes to trans people in America. They have to lie about 2-year-olds getting gender reassignment surgery and puberty blockers. They have to lie about this massive wave of trans men in women's sports or something. They just lie constantly because they know that most people just don't care about a portion of the population that's less than 1 or even 0.1%. But they have to fearmonger about it, and why they get a few more people onto their side of thinking when it comes to fairness in sports. What it really does is it emboldens bigots like this to attack people, and then provides cover for predators to have plausible deniability for why they need to be constantly going after young women.
Well,
I mean, it's what Lex said too, in terms of mind your own business. Most people, if they saw someone who they thought was not the gender that's supposed to go in a gendered bathroom, they would just mind their own business, because to get involved here, you have to be of the political ideology that thinks that these people are bad, so I got to go in there and be a hero. Because otherwise, what's the harm even if someone using the wrong bathroom? It's just mind your own business. If anything, it's at most oh, how embarrassing. They used that woman went into a men's room or something like that. Yeah, no one cares. No one cares unless you think you're a hero for stepping in because something bad is going to happen. And that's what this server probably felt. This server probably felt so morally superior, like they were doing something heroic.
Well, it's also if you're this server I think was a woman, but in the broader dynamic about it, masculinity for these right-wingers is defined often by this, patriarchal notions of saving women or protecting them. And what they're really doing is they're protecting their version of femininity that comports with their rigid gender ideology, but they pretend like they're saving individual women. And I just want to point out that there were a lot of women, cis women, that participated in this trans panic, TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, that said that trans women were in some way taking away from the feminist movement. Is this the feminist movement here, having a girl like this being accosted and assaulted? How violating that must be to have to show her private areas to a server because they don't believe her about being trans or being cis. This is what TERFs have created, and they pretended that this was protecting feminism. I can't think of a more anti-feminist posture than emboldening this level of policing of gender in this way.
Absolutely cultivated. Remember this?
That's a real thing. Now, the people that want to deny that that's a real thing, you're doing a disservice for everyone.
You remember what that was about?
Was that about the litter boxes in schools?
No, that was about the very obviously fake video of a trans man supposedly being really belligerent about going into a bathroom, and it turned out, I mean, very obviously, to the point where I think the account was named Spoof Zone or something like that.
Yes.
And Rogan's like, that's real, and everybody, but that tone Rogan took is exactly what you're talking about with the people who participated in this, which is that we need to have real conversations about these trans people and how belligerent they're getting, and all of that was a lot that was peddled by people like that, right-wing propaganda.
Yep.
Must be amazing to have no shame. To say stuff and do stuff that just are blatantly wrong and harmful 24/7 all the time, and just go on to the next thing and be blatantly wrong and harmful and just feel nothing. It's amazing. I wish I could do that.
It's amazing. We'll do one. You want to do this, and then we'll get to calls. So Tucker Carlson had a nun who lives in Palestine, Mother Agapia Stephanopoulos. Did we confirm whether or not
she is?
She's related to George Stephanopoulos.
Sister.
Okay. He had her on his show to talk about Christians in Palestine, and I just want to emphasize this: that the right wing's focus on this being about anti-Christian discrimination is not the right way to talk about the genocide in Gaza. It still pits ethnic or religious and ethnic groups against one another. It still is rooted in notions of Christian nationalism that Tucker Carlson is trying to appeal to, that and in places that have anti-Jewish sentiments undergirding them. But I still am encouraged to hear that this conversation is happening, and that statements like this are being told to his audience, because unfortunately this guy is growing. Tucker Carlson is having delayed success after leaving Fox News here, and his podcast is really popular. So at the very least, I'm happy that statements like this about Christians and Muslims living alongside one another are being said, especially because if you read the work of Avi Shlaim, among others, you can see how there were also Jews that were indigenous to the region who lived alongside Muslims and Christians prior to Zionism. It was Zionism that was the destabilizing force in the Middle East and in Israel and Palestine. So here is her statement to Tucker Carlson that I've seen is going a bit viral.
So you can have sort of differences of opinion, if you will, and we can all live with each other between that. So with Muslim and Christian, they can have their differences, but overall the Palestinian culture is infused with both there.
So you were a nun in a majority Muslim town, a Christian nun,
Yep.
in your habit, I assume.
And which also was to an advantage because pious Muslims are not jihadists, the ones that I know. I'm not saying other parts of the world that may be the case, but in Palestine, it's simply not the case, or Syria or Lebanon or Iraq. The Muslims that for the most part are, they've all grown up together, the Christians and the Muslims. And, there's a certain amount of commonality and respect. And so me being dressed like this was just like many of the women there, right? So they kind of respected that. There's the same sort of conservative culture. There's the same sort of idea that we're both have some same basic values of compassion for our neighbor, of taking care of our families, and trying to live. They have their form of fasting and almsgiving, and it's actually very important to them. And I think the best parts of Islam come from its development from Christian ideas that Muhammad came to know. I'm sure of that. You can sense it.
This is a very different story from the one that we're told in the American media, that Christians are imperiled by Muslims in the Middle East.
They are not imperiled by Muslims in Palestine. That is an absolute fact. And that's just simply not the case. And again, going back to my school, in our school, we had icons, which are part of the Orthodox tradition, pictures of saints, and crosses in every classroom. No problem with that. I could show you a photograph, I can't now, but of the graduates of the latest high school graduation. And, they're embracing the nuns there. They're dressed actually in a more secular way. And it all
So a lot of your students were Muslim?
98%. The only Christian
of your students were Muslims.
Yeah. And about half the teachers during the time I was there, some Muslim, some Christian.
In a Christian school.
Yes, and actually that's all throughout Palestine. The Orthodox is a relatively small. We do have schools.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. But that's Tucker. It's because it's a majority Muslim area. But again, the construction of it, I have major issues with, and we'll probably play in just a second old footage of Tucker Carlson speaking about Muslims in the most degrading, dehumanizing way, calling Iraqis monkeys, just to give people a reminder of who this guy really is. He's not interested in multiculturalism or a critique like that. But it is one of the first times I've ever heard a right-wing host frame or a right-wing show say anything except Muslims are inherently violent.
They can't coexist.
I mean, Tucker Carlson, like a lot of far-right figures, Candace Owens is another one, is really riding the silence from the mainstream right-wing, conservative, and also mainstream liberal media about some of the realities of Israel and this genocide that's going on. You can see Tucker Carlson's career really start to go up as he starts dipping his toes into Israel critique and Trump critique. And that is just becoming the way they go, because they're going to follow the same model that Trump did when he took over the Republican Party, which is to break these veils of silence that are oftentimes bipartisan, but certainly also Republican, and use that to garner increasing legitimacy, not just with the far right media sphere, but with people all over society who are only going to be hearing it from people like Tucker, because his underlying critique doesn't challenge, American capitalism, doesn't challenge Western supremacism. It just seeks to subvert some of the current norms around it. But we have to acknowledge this is something that the mainstream media is doing. Tucker doesn't have to do anything but just speak the most basic truths, to talk about that there are Palestinian Christians. There are things that people should know, but MSNBC won't cover, CNN won't cover. And I'm not saying they don't have at least on the surface complex reasons for why that is. I would say underlying, it's certainly driven by a business decision to support the status quo. But some of the hosts might have different reasons for not wanting to demonize the state of Israel. Maybe they feel like it's actually, it would do more damage to Jewish people than it would help. But all it does is allow for Tucker Carlson to step in. And we know what the next thing he's going to be talking about is, at least if not him, his audience will be talking about some of the traditional myths about, or traditional beliefs amongst Christians of Jews killing Jesus. And that's going to be just the way the parallels they draw. This is, a lot of people have convinced themselves that the position of Israel within the American system is immutable. There can never be something different. It's for whatever reason, we're just attached to them. I do not believe that's the case. I think that there's a very good chance that 2032, the Republican Party's platform is going to be, we're going to reveal the Epstein stuff and we're going to take it to Israel. And they'll, if they don't win a substantial portion of the swing voters, they'll certainly suppress a substantial portion of Democratic Party's base.
Yeah, it's exploiting this silence, and frankly, this opening it's not just the media class that is giving alternative media sources that speak the truth on this and open it or speak to it, speak basic truths about it. And again, Tucker Carlson is trying to lead down a road that talks about Jewish people in an extremely anti-Semitic way, or at least elicits these kind of questions in his audience. It's liberal Zionists, and it's liberal Zionists within the Democratic Party who have every opportunity, because their constituency demands it, with only 8% of Democrats supporting Israel's military action in Gaza right now, according to Gallup. They have all of the opportunity in the world to fill this void and say what is true, but they're not saying it, and they're doing it in defiance of their base. And you see the support for Israel among Republicans, it's something like 70%. Tucker Carlson speaking to a smaller audience, but he's there's media like that's speaking to that audience at the very least, where the Democratic Party has this code of silence around this that's damaging their credibility more than they realize.
And they'll also, because I think the overall message of this is that this is going to cause Israel's position in, the genocide they're conducting with full support of the United States, the UK, and the Western imperialist project is going to make life more dangerous for Jewish people around the world. And this entire time they have been trying to invert that and make this the solution to anti-Semitism that is broad largely across the West, when in reality it's just going to make things more dangerous. And the people who ultimately operate in the media, like the editors of the New York Times, Joe Biden, people who have been contributing to this problem. Once life has been made more dangerous for people of color, for Jewish people, they will never take responsibility for like having contributed to that. They will totally abdicate that responsibility and will be blaming like the college students on college campuses who were protesting the genocide, the uncommitted voters who were begging them to stop empowering, Israel, stop empowering genocide, people doing a genocide. And, I think it's very frustrating for leftists to see this happen because they can hear on our media these criticisms, but for the vast majority of Americans, they're much more likely to hear Tucker Carlson because
exactly
the mainstream media will go from defending the genocide and obscuring these things to platforming Tucker as so he's the first person to ever say these things because at least his message is a lot more amenable to what they do.
Well said. Yeah. All right, guys, let's open up the phones. We'll take a few calls and then we'll do that. 646-257-3920 is the number. Noam Groan says Tucker Carlson is evil. He is certainly a pig of capital. That said, it's interesting what can be abstracted about corporate control of media from seeing how him now versus back on Fox or MSNBC. Yes, I think that's true. Saturn Girl. There will be a MAGA insurrection over Epstein, Maxwell, and Gaza. Once that dies down, the MAGA base will openly and violently attack the rest of us. I see a lot of liberals talking about finding common ground with conservatives. When someone's ultimate position is you shouldn't exist, finding common ground is suicidal. Shrimpomania says, Social Security turns 90 today. It should run for president. That's funny. Happy birthday, Social Security. Evan from Portland. Phil Knight just gave to my university $2 billion, the largest donation to any public university ever. The age of oligarchy advances. Science is political. I was watching a Taylor Lorenz video that she made about a month ago, and she said there's all this focus on winning back young men and masculinity, that women and all of the patriarchy propaganda that they get bombarded with is being left to void that conservative women use to influence women on the right. Yes, honestly, it kind of touches on the conversation I had with Crystal Ball that we recorded for their show Crystal, Kyle, and Friends, where we kind of had a lefty feminism off talking about some of this stuff. So look out for that interview. I think that their episode drops tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, but we recorded it like 2 days ago. Midwest queer speech freed. Comedy legalized. Fun at sororities returned. Thank you, Mr. President. Mark Eggerson says, Newsmax trying to moralize old boomer gooner boners as defending white men is insane and way too horny on Maine. Silver Fang, when Fox News was talking about trans in girls' sports, they kept playing high school girls as B-roll on the side of talking heads. Any reason to look at girls? Yep. Company Townie, calling the first half free is like pointing out that Lindsey Graham dated Ann Coulter. No one is fooled. New York, El Canipsion, New York Times omitted any mention of Smotrich in their coverage of West Bank settler violence. It's fucking insane. Vaughn from Wisconsin. Emma, please don't eat on camera. It reminds us that you are a human and not a smart leftist lady that lives in our phones. I'm sorry about that. I do have to eat to survive. Felonious Monk. White patriarchy are horrified of losing presumed identity. Yes. All right. Quick call here. Calling from a 928 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Congratulations. You've reached the Felonious Monk.
Oh, Felonious Monk, a long-time IMer. What's on your mind?
I just really appreciated the interview that you had around the prisoner industrial complex. It's funny that you bring up GEO and CCA. My PhD dissertation was 2013, and we talked about this exact thing. And so it's just not a problem that is going away. And I've been an advocate for the prisoner class for a very long time. I was arrested in 1991 for bank robbery, and I've spent the last that many years being a second-class citizen. What a person doesn't realize, I think, is that what is it you can lose? And we see these pictures of alligator Alcatraz, and they're alarming. But that doesn't, it's sort of like watching movies of war. You don't really, you can see it, but you don't really get it. And the getting it is, being there, being one of those sweaty bodies being moved from point A to point B.
Right.
And so I unfortunately I could wax on for a long, long time. I just think that the clear point I really want to make is never take a deal. And because the cost is not necessarily time in jail, the cost is against the rest of your life. As an example, I can't cash a check for my father, who's 96 years old, because in the state of Washington, felons can't be fiduciaries.
That's insane.
My crime was 30 plus years ago, and it was nonviolent. I robbed a bank. I was a heroin addict. I was the typical bank robber in the 1990s. As a 20-year-old heroin addict, white guy. And, I was that because, I'm a combat veteran, disabled veteran. And, PTSD is a bitch. And, it drives people, but that's aside from the point. The point is that I can see right now, I can see the day room at United States Penitentiary, Lompoc in California. I can see the guys, the fellas there.
Yeah.
I can see the segregation. This is the reality. And and this is the fun half. Listen, you guys rock. Left is best. It's hard to imagine being farther left than I am, but it is best. And, you guys are rock stars. So,
well, I
thanks so much for
appreciate
being
it.
here.
And thanks for sharing your story because, there's even in this coverage of Ghislaine Maxwell, right, being moved to this lower security prison, and you see that it's the same one that Jen Shaw and the Theranos lady are at, and the Theranos lady whose name I'm forgetting right. Oh, Elizabeth Holmes.
Club said.
Yeah, she was photographed working out outside and smiling, and I was like reading some of the comments from people like, "This is too nice," like blah blah. Like, incarceration is the punishment. Incarceration is the punishment, and it's supposed to be rehabilitatory, right? Not and this impulse in the United States is one of sick sadism and cruelty. Like, that incarceration should also be basically torturous, and we're now at that moment too, especially where it's also for folks who are immigrants, and the dehumanization and the enjoyment of that pain for anybody is something that it's hard for me to fully understand or comprehend.
I think that just to really quickly interject, Foucault, Michael Foucault, he talked about how we took punishment and hid it. Punishment used to be happening on, they executed you right in the center of the town. People came from all around to watch somebody get hung.
Yep.
But we buried it in prisons. Dinosaurs could be in USP Lompoc, and none of us would know. Those places are hidden from the world. They are black holes. That's my 3-year-old daughter, sorry. And they're black holes. And so what happens in that environment is theirs, and theirs alone. And I think that we have a fascination. There's a fascination to be, at least if you're on the bottom, at least you're above the guy that's getting raped in prison.
Yep.
There's just a satisfaction in that. And it's very sad, but it's very human. And we're no better and no worse than anyone else. I think just a really quote that I remember, and I don't know who to attribute to. It's often been attributed to Winston Churchill. That's incorrect. If you want to look to the worst persons in your society, look to your jailers. Look to the people that put themselves in prison for 30 years. And those persons and the anger that they have. You think about the one bad day you had at work. The one bad day they had at work can affect hundreds of human beings. And that is a frightening reality that we live in.
Yep.
And, this is the fun half you have. So, peace be with you. And, you stay free. Don't take the deal.
I appreciate you sharing your story. Thanks so much. Automat Lex says prisons should be only used to keep dangerous people away, not as punishment. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I still remember that backlash to when people saw Anders Breivik's cell in Norway or whatever, and thinking, oh, okay, he has an Xbox, and it looks like a dorm. Who gives a fuck?
I mean, I think the caller made a really good point towards the end there that in America, so much of the defense of capitalism as it stands today is that there is supposed to be a permanent underclass. And, in America, sometimes that's the server class, the people who like work, menial jobs that keep society going, but people feel are beneath them, like garbage man or like janitor or sometimes teacher. And prison is another form of that. And as the quality of life for the average American gets worse, they just want other people to do worse. They don't think about themselves as being able to be uplifted. They just want other people to do worse, I think, sometimes, to at least, broaden the gap between them and the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, that's all much of what Trump has sold to the American public, too, within the context of immigration.
And into that, Nicole's other point, like Trump has also been very active in trying to hide the consequences of his bad policies. His tariffs are going to increase homelessness along with his job cuts and the consequences they've had for the job market. And now he's trying to like lock homeless people away so that you don't have to see it. So he can pretend as though like he's doing the right thing or like he's having a successful presidency.
Right. Calling from a 514 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 514?
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, that's me.
Who's
Hi,
this? Where are
this
you calling
is
from?
Morgan from Montreal.
Morgan from Montreal. What's on your
Sorry,
mind?
I had to run out of my office. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on an interview that took place maybe early July with with Gordon.
Oh, we're losing you. Wherever you're leaving your office to doesn't have good service.
He hasn't listened to that episode.
Oh. Caller, I'm sorry. Going once. Going twice. Sorry. I feel badly. All right, but we'll take another one here. Calling from a 678 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, I believe that might be me. Hi, this is Patrick from Georgia.
Patrick from Georgia. Brian identified where you would be calling from before you even spoke. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to touch base on part of a clip I think you showed yesterday and use that as a launching off point. It was the interview on Fox News with James Tallarico, and I don't really care for who the Fox News guy was.
Right.
They were talking about gerrymandering and redistricting, and the Fox News host brought up Massachusetts.
Will Kane? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm assuming to kind of make a point about like how Massachusetts is so gerrymandered, like there are a ton of Republicans there, but they don't get like a seat in the House, whatever. And this kind of goes off of a mistake a lot of people make when it comes to like House representation, because they just look at like say the vote percentage and then like the House percentage and like, oh, there's like a discrepancy, there's a problem here. The thing is, with a state like Massachusetts, you can't really do that because, and in fact, there was a study done in 2019 by a group of researchers who were trying to find some way to draw the districts to see if they could even get like one Republican, because like fortunately you think like, oh, there's like 9 seats, you should think have like 3, 2, maybe 1 on a bad day. They found it was literally impossible because the way that Republican voters are distributed across the state makes it difficult to, and basically, again, like I said, impossible to find a way to make a district that actually get a Republican elected. And I kind of want to use it as a jumping off point to talk about how we don't really talk a lot about a lot of the other structural problems with how we do House representation. Like, people often go on about, like, oh, like, we need to get rid of the Electoral College for the president and, like, change, like, the Senate rule because it's so disproportionate. Yet, relatively speaking, the House gets very little attention, and usually when it does, it's only in the context of gerrymandering, because there are a lot of other problems when it comes to representation. Like, for example, the fact that we use single-member districts, often with plurality voting, that basically enshrines, like, having a two-party system. Or my main sticking point, that the size of the House itself has not increased in over 100 years, to the point where, like, the average district size since then has more than tripled. And I can just find it interesting how, like, no one really talks about it, especially considering that relative to, like, the House, to the Senate and the presidency, it's, like, the easiest to fix.
I've heard that. I'm not necessarily convinced we need to add more House seats. I mean, in part, that proportion, I know it was set, but we have like immense technological resources in ways that we didn't previously, that like constituent services are made easier. So, but I hear a lot of your other points.
Yeah, that's just kind of like the thing that just finds so baffling, like how little the House gets in attention relative to other like elected bodies. And I kind of just wish a little more attention was just brought on to that. But yeah, that's basically all I got to say about it.
No, it's a good point.
I mean, I would be open to adding seats as long as it was accompanied by the idea that this is the best House of Congress and that the other branches should be minimized in support of it, the most democratic one, like the Senate, for instance. The Senate is a relic that, shouldn't... and it's not impossible to imagine a politics that does do something to minimize even the Senate's power. Tony Blair somehow in the 90s went after the House of Lords and liberalized that or brought that into the future a little bit. So that's, not somebody I consider a political ally. But at a certain point, you need to realize that these systems do need some kind of maintenance, or they're just implausible that they actually represent people.
Right. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Rafi says one benefit of adding House seats is diluting Senate seat votes in the Electoral College. It can be done by an act of Congress too. Diluting Senate seat votes in the Electoral College?
Is that how that works?
Count of Monte Cristo says one benefit of expanding the size of the House is that it's easier now for companies to control the House by buying out fewer lawmakers and having to do more research for how to sway them. Yeah. I mean, right? Like they have the margins to
But
buy
they'd
more.
be more representative. I mean, smaller districts would be more representative.
Yeah.
Just mathematically. I mean, they'd be able to be gerrymandered and stuff like that. But
I guess that's true. Party with a Gee says it's 100% the idea that people in prison shouldn't have a better life than me. So I can barely afford a home, food on the table, free time to learn, work out, etc. How dare they let a felon in prison have all that after he did something so bad he had to be removed from society? If we had a good social safety net and people weren't so beat down by society, prisons would look a lot more like they do in Norway. Yeah. Haircut Hippie said, in case you haven't noticed, and I know you have, Orange Turd Burger wants to create the Weimar Republic right here. That's his twisted goal. Verbonia says, I think the attitude of hierarchy and punishment also explains our collective treatment of homeless people pretty well. Yeah, well said. We'll take another call and then we'll do this clip. Calling from a 419 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Emma. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
This is Drew from Toledo.
Drew from Toledo. What's on your mind?
First of all, I wanted to, as someone who has become pro-gun on the left since Trump, I wanted to shout out In-Range TV. As the host of this channel doesn't say that he's into politics, but he's very clearly a decent person. His name is Carl Casarda, and he does a lot of videos lately about human rights, firearm ownership as it pertains to civil rights and stuff like that. And then another channel called Ben, just B-E-N. This guy is from Germany. He's half Japanese, half German, and he has a fascinating couple of videos. A lot of videos are good, but the two that stand out are about the aesthetics of fascism and the new aesthetics of fascism. But what I called to talk about was, I'll give you two choices. Since it's the fun half, I could talk about Vivek Ramaswamy running for governor of Ohio, or I could talk about homelessness in Toledo, which is not fun.
You pick. Which one you think is more important to say?
Right.
Yeah.
So my father is homeless, and he is not probably officially counted as one of those people because on paper he lives at my mother's house. But there's officially last year 1,258 homeless people in Toledo. There has to be many more than that. The metro area is like 200-something thousand people. And main shelters for them, I don't believe there are any that are government run in Toledo. I might be wrong about that, but the most well-known ones are all religiously orientated, and so have the issues that come along with that. But the caller or the guest, I think it was like 2 or 3 Mondays ago, talking about the lady whose 14-year-old son could not go with her. I would imagine that's exactly the way that it works here in Toledo. But I do know that essentially, if you stay, the Cherry Street Mission is the most well-known one here, and if you stay there, you have a very limited space for your possessions, which are apparently pretty rife for being stolen. You are not allowed to be inside the building during the day. I think that's from like 6 or 8 a.m. to like dark or something. You can't go back outside at night if you stay at this place, and there are bed bugs and roaches, and like it's just like the most horrible thing. Like I don't understand how as somebody who is directly involved with a homeless person in their life, I don't understand how anybody can't have compassion for this. And I've eaten at soup kitchens with my father before, and like I said, officially there are 1,258 people here that are homeless, but there's no way that it's only that many. Like there are people panhandling all over the city, and it's bad.
Well, I appreciate you telling us about it. Thank you so much, and best of luck. Keep us updated, okay?
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Of course. Okay, so let's pivot to this here. Steven Crowder's back from vacation, I guess?
I don't know how long he's been on vacation, but he's back to like be noticeable, I guess.
Okay. And we've been seeing an interesting split on the right that we've just talked about a bit in the context of the Tucker Carlson interview on Israel. Ben Shapiro, obviously massive Zionist, has taken some heat from his audience for his full-throated support for this genocide. And then you have the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens of the world, who are framing the genocide of Palestinians as in some way discriminatory towards Christians and trying to, attack it from an isolationist perspective, which is earnest, but also has these anti-Jewish undertones to it. And so where will Steven Crowder land? How will he land this plane? Will he be able to do so convincingly? I'm actually genuinely curious. I haven't seen this yet. Matt, you can set this up.
Well, this video is called "This Fall Off Needs to Be Studied," and it's about Tucker Carlson. So here is...
Wait, okay, so fall off, definitionally he's not, because I don't love this fact, but he's one of the top political podcasts in the country.
Yeah, and Crowder is, like I said, beneath notice most of the time.
Yeah, all right.
So a little bit of projection here, but here is... Zionist Steven Crowder.
Oh.
It's lazy propaganda. And I'll just use that as one quick example. Like, how many have there ever been Palestinians or Hamas who have threatened America? Well, yeah, of course, threatened Americans. Yeah, of course, death to America.
That's the so-called threat. So, in the context of this conversation, they say actually Palestinians or even Hamas doesn't actually threaten America, even though they say death to America. The reason they say that is because we're the one giving Israel all of the weapons. But there's not actually, they don't target Americans. That's something Israel does, and gets away with it.
Israel has certainly killed Americans directly.
Exactly.
U.S. Well, currently Palestinian Americans, but we can look up the USS Liberty and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. They get away with it because of people like Steven Crowder.
Yeah.
And Christians do need to not take Steven's route on this. I'll just say that.
An individual American on American soil? Well, no, because we've had security measures to make sure that doesn't happen.
What?
It's silly.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Why.
I'm sorry. A missile from Iran couldn't reach this country. We don't have that capacity. Palestinians don't have an airport. They don't have an army. They don't have long-range weaponry. Are we serious? What is he talking about here? They can't even hit Israel with rockets. You think they can hit the United States?
Steven Crowder subscribes wholly to the post 9/11 hysteria, where people like leaders, Zionists in the Project for a New American Century, were blaming Palestinians for the hijackings with zero information because it served the interest of Israel and what they want to do in terms of having a pretense to massacre people and then take their land.
It's lazy, it's dumb, and considering how aggressively Tucker Carlson goes after people with whom we would agree more. For example, Ted Cruz is not perfect. He annoys me, if anything.
Yeah.
But
please.
Certainly would align with him on more things than a Hamas apologist.
Yes.
We're going to contrast the follow-ups, the pressing, the leading questions of a lady like this who just said Hamas is
a nun, a Christian nun, is who he's calling a Hamas apologist.
No, come on. Have they ever killed an American, threatened an American on American soil here? Whoa, hold on a second. I thought we were going to have an honest discussion. So let's go to who first. Who is Mother Stephanopoulos? Of course, George Stephanopoulos' sister, former Clinton advisor and broadcaster, George Stephanopoulos. This is his sister. She's obviously been connected for quite a while. She's a U.S.-born Russian Orthodox nun. She does have a very long history of flat-out lying, just to be clear, factually, in a verifiable way, lying. So
verifiable way. We're going to look at the sources that Crowder cites here. Things like the Jerusalem Post or the let's play.
2002, Palestinian terrorists seized the Church of Nativity in Bethlehem.
No. So this is the siege of the Nativity in Bethlehem. This is during the Second Intifada, which was provoked by Israel, storming the Temple Mount or the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and also the sort of insult that was the Oslo Accords. So so what happens is a bunch of Palestinians take refuge inside this Church of the Nativity, and Israel lays siege to it for 40 days. And here's a Franciscan monk at the time. Let's just see, I guess maybe this guy's a Hamas supporter, as Steven Crowder would like to say. But let's see who he blames.
I've been warning for days now that an attack is imminent. And on behalf of my brothers calling on the church and the world to intervene with the Israeli government to persuade it not to launch it. What we have heard instead are lying promises, day after day, hour after hour, from the Israeli government to the whole world that they will never attack. There were signs of an impending attack. There were many signs.
So Israel was saying that the Christians are lying, that we're holding up with the Palestinians in this church, that they were lying. They were actually held hostages, and the Israelis were trying to save them from being held hostage by the Palestinians. No, Stephanopoulos' sister was one of the Christians who was in the church saying, no, actually, Israel needs to back the fuck off and stop storming all of our shit. And Crowder is just taking that hook, line, and sinker. It is disgraceful how much he's willing to, I'm sorry, overlook Christians and listen to the Israeli state's line on all these things. So this is who he cites. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it makes sense, though, given what, his lack of popularity, because we're seeing this, too, now. It was just in Axios that Israel is openly courting right-wing influencers, and I would imagine that there are some people that are very much interested, including a guy like Tim Pool, who met with him, and Dave Rubin, Benjamin Netanyahu, that is, are very interested in some extra subsidization for their content.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to read this quote that's up there right now, if you can put this up, Brian. And let's see, in 2025, if we're who we want to be skeptical of this claims here. Israeli army spokesmen say statements made by the priests indicate that the clergy in the church are being held hostage by Palestinian militants. A spokesman for the Franciscan order told reporters that the clergy inside were voluntary hostages who were remaining in the church to show solidarity with trapped Palestinians because they believed that their presence in the church would help avoid future bloodshed. And Crowder puts that up on screen, very small, I might add, probably too small to read in this brief moment that he puts it up. But he's saying the Christians are lying. Trust the Israelis.
Lying. So in 2002, Palestinian terrorists seized the Church of Nativity in Bethlehem, and they took monks as hostages. And She misrepresented a whole lot of their string of emails written by her.
I was just saying these are citing the Jewish press, and I couldn't access this article when I tried to earlier. But I'll just say I don't trust that source. I'll take the Franciscan monks, those liars. I'll take their word over it.
I mean, I just went to the Jewish Press website, and the first article is Judea and Samaria, summer is here. Looking for something to do?
What a shock! Exactly. I mean, this is Crowder's news. Trust that over the Christians or the Catholics, right, Stephen?
Israeli soldiers of shooting up a medical clinic, defecating on its floor, looting.
Oh, yeah. Let's get this. He's saying this is lies. This actually sounds exactly like the IDF. I mean, again, 2025, buddy. Let's update our priors.
Hostages, and she misrepresented a whole lot of their string of emails written by her accusing Israeli soldiers of shooting up a medical clinic, defecating on its floor, looting, robbing Palestinian homes. Sometimes there are articles that say she accused people falsely of rape. Now, keep in mind, she always said this is what...
Where were those articles? Were those from the Jewish press too, Stephen?
Someone else told me. She's never experienced this herself or seen it herself and admitted as much, but it didn't stop her from going to the press. She also describes terrorists as not terrorists. Sometimes she...
Yeah. So as for the gunmen who taken over the Church of Nativity, again, she said that they're voluntarily. For the most part, they claim they are not terrorists, but policemen and parishioners of these churches, husbands and brothers trying to defend their homes. Who are you gonna believe? The IDF, who has been calling everyone they massacre terrorists, every Palestinian a terrorist, or again, the Franciscan monks.
Describes them as policemen, parishioners, husbands, and fathers. So you can check all the references. That's who this person is, if you want to know the motivations there and how much you would align with this person's perspective. Let me just rattle off a few examples of so clearly factually inaccurate statements that were pushed back on 0%, so you can kind of guess how the rest of the interview goes. Here's the very first claim that she makes. She says that the Christian population in Israel is declining.
Well, that's a good point, Emma. That's what's happening right now, which is that the Christians do need to hear what this woman has to say. What's going on in their supposed Holy Land. They should hear it. And Stephen Crowder is poisoning the well. To try to protect that from ever happening. That's all that's happening right here.
Yeah.
That were two examples of so clearly factually inaccurate statements that were pushed back on 0%, so you can kind of guess how the rest of the interview goes. Here's the very first claim that she makes. She says that the Christian population in Israel is declining. Go.
I keep reading that the Christian population in the region has declined dramatically since Israel became a state in 1948.
Right.
Wrong.
And I'm not quite sure why.
Israel has continued to grow and think that they can dominate the Christian areas, the areas of Palestine. So they make it very difficult for anyone else to be able to live there.
But I'm just still confused by the idea that the Christian population is declining under Israeli rule. Yeah. You would think just the opposite.
They do not want any Palestinians there. So the majority of Christians in Israel and Palestine are Palestinian. So they have to leave too.
Okay, let's put the conflation that she does on the, I'm using the term loosely, on the side here. And you know what? This should be fine. A lot of people are afraid because there's some, I'll tell you this, but there's some dirty pool that takes place if people criticize Tucker, and you're not part of the Cool Kids Club. I keep reading that the Christian population has declined there since Israel has become, since they've gained statehood. Well, where are you reading that? Because Israel's Christian population is increasing. From 23 to 24 recently, it's been an increase of 0.6%, and it's grown by 5 times. The Christian population has multiplied by 5 since 48.
Okay, actually, I want to see that source. And maybe we can pause for a sec, and you guys, because I want to run through the rest of it too. But this is the same argument that they're using against Palestinians, because Palestinians have no access to basic health care and things like contraceptive care. And they are also very young as a population compared to other populations, because even prior to the genocide, they don't have the luxury of getting old, or they leave. And so, yes, their population grows because they don't have contraception and stuff like that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common thing that people under occupation, not just Gaza or Palestine, West Bank in general, but anywhere, because there's not a whole lot else to do. The conditions lead to certain things of like that. Like that's a pretty common thing. But he's wrong here. Just let's let him finish this claim.
Okay.
About like he goes back to 1948 too.
From 23 to 24, because Israel's Christian population is increasing. From 23 to 24 recently, it's been an increase of 0.6%, and it's grown by 5 times. The Christian population has multiplied by 5 since 48. Let's contrast that with the Christian population in Palestine. 90% decline since 1922.
Oh, okay. So that's even dumber than I thought. I thought he was referring to Palestine at the beginning there. No, he's talking about Christian Zionists in Israel?
Yes. And so the thing that's happening here is if you ask Christians in Palestine why they're leaving, they blame Israel. And here's a piece from AmericaMagazine.org, I believe a Catholic magazine. Indians, Christians have lived in Palestine since the origins of Christianity about 2,000 years ago. Over the centuries, Christians immigrated to Palestine. Palestinian Christians comprised at least 15% of the Palestinian population in the late 19th century under Ottoman Muslim rule, and about 7.5% in 1944 in the final years of the British Mandate. During the 1948 war, which resulted in the establishment of the State of Israel and much of historic Palestine, more than a third of Palestinian Christians were among the 750,000 refugees forced to flee their homes in Palestine. The Israeli historian Ilan Pape describes Israel's war of independence, we've had Pape on the show, which Palestinians call the Nakba, as the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. So Crowder is saying, again, their raw numbers may have slightly increased, although that's only if you zoom into specific numbers. What's happening is a large number of Israelis are drowning out that population. So in all these holy places, the raw number might go up. The percentage is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because who's allowed to move there? Stephen, who is allowed to move to these places? Is it Christians? Are Christians allowed to move into Israel? Or is it Jews? Is it exclusively Jewish folks? Or into these settlements? Stephen Crowder supports these settlements more than he supports the indigenous Christians to Palestine. That's what's happening right here.
I don't know. You don't have a bell, though.
Ding! It's so Pavlovian.
In Palestine, 90% decline since 1922. It's a factually incorrect statement, and both of them make it. I'm just asking questions. Here's the thing. I can't stand AIPAC, and I don't think that the United States should be supporting Israel to the tune of billions of dollars like we do. I think it's good to have an ally, and I hope that they blow up every single last member of Hamas until they get their hostages back.
You mean Tucker doesn't know the Christian population of a country he wants to hate?
Neither do y'all.
Well, I mean, also one important thing to understand about the Christians especially the Arab Christians in Israel, is that they're also not fans of the Israeli state, though. Like, a lot of them are driven there due to the same reasons people are driven to like richer states and regions. Like, there's like a wealth issue when it comes to Israel that drives refugees from other parts of the Middle East. But when you actually, at least from the recent poll, the most recent poll I was able to find from Pew like weeks ago, which was again a while ago, they don't support the Israeli ethno-state project. They think, along with the Arab Muslims in the region, that Israel can't be an apartheid state and a democracy at the same time. So just talking about the number of Christians there is irrelevant to the realities that they face on the ground, and how they feel about the Israeli state project, which is bad. They don't like it there.
How could he not know the population of a country he wants to hate?
Yeah, well, he also knows the opposite of truth, which is it's declining. And I know people, you can like Tucker. Hey, that's why we have an admonish button. This is factually incorrect. Here's another one that's made, that Christians, specifically Christians, need a permit to travel to Jerusalem.
A Christian who lives in Bethlehem cannot go to Jerusalem, to the Holy Sepulchre, without a permit by Israel, and they don't usually give those permits, especially now.
A Christian can't.
No, without permission from Israel.
She smiled.
That's interesting because I mean those Christians that you're describing, I mean, they're the descendants of the Christians.
Absolutely, yeah. They've been there from the beginning. Yeah.
So specifically, Christians can't, and then reiterate. So Christians can't. All Palestinian citizens need permits to travel between Israel and Palestinian-governed areas.
So what this is an admission of is that it's not about religion. This is a racist apartheid. And it doesn't matter if you're Christian Palestinian or Muslim Palestinian. You do not get to go within Israel, which is a place that we're not even clear where the borders are. Are we going to Greater Israel? So are we going to even be able to go into like Jordan after a certain amount of time?
That's the one good source he has too, B'Tselem, which just proves everyone's point about, and also maybe but also sort of undercuts again Tucker's focus on this as a Christian, a story of Christian, anti-Christian hate, basically, and it's about Zionism and imperialism, which the right's narrative about this
It's about
obscures.
racist nationalism, not religious sectarianism. Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we're just putting our journalism hat on. We're just asking questions. Could you guess why? Do you think maybe there's some security issues? Do you think maybe the idea of now wherever you line up, I wouldn't fault Palestinians and Hamas for requiring permits. The fact is, no one actually goes there because they get shot at. But I wouldn't
shot at by the Israelis.
Yeah, right.
fault them. If you're at war, it's like, hey, do you think we need a permit? I don't know. How many rockets have been launched at our civilian population today?
Nah, come on in.
But they make it sound like it's just Christians.
Wait. How about, what do you mean, come on in? What? Gaza, people can't leave. That was the other point I wanted to make about his thing about Palestinian terrorism and that they would kill us. They would kill us. This hysterical little man baby. Does he have his holsters on yet? Maybe that's why he's feeling a little scared.
Can't wear it during the custody battle.
Yeah, the gun is gone. There's no gun visible, Stephen.
No, but it's a concentration camp, you psycho. Yeah, it's dangerous. And why is that? Because Israel's bombing the hell out of them. And it's also the reason that they are not a terroristic threat to the United States because they literally can't leave the concentration camp.
We played this clip of Smotrich saying that our response will come not in documents, not in decisions or declarations, but in facts. In the facts of houses, in the facts of neighborhoods, roads, and more Jewish families will build lives. He does not, that is Jewish lives. And that is not just to dilute, but mainly to dilute the Palestinian Muslim population. But there are Palestinian Christians, and that people like Smotrich, that Crowder capes for, are every bit as set on diluting their demographic as they are as the Muslims in Palestine. That's what the facts on the ground are for. They are to dilute the demographics of those people. That's what Zionism is.
With the lie that the Christian population is decreasing exclusively in Israel, when the opposite is true, makes a case based on a scenario that's a lie. This idea that Israel is the most anti-Christian nation in that region, whereas the other ones are tolerant. It's not true. Here's another one that's factually incorrect. It's just not even close. That Israel and the United States specifically installed a new regime in Syria.
I find it mind-boggling.
This is 100% true.
This is just basic news, man.
I mean, I don't even.
Jelani's pro-Israel.
Yeah. Do we need more of that? I mean,
no, we don't. But let's just say, you mentioned about Israel looking for influencers, and
yes,
Steven Crowder is not somebody they've had to cultivate. This is from Steven Crowder's very first YouTube video on his channel. It was entitled "Go Team Israel," in parentheses, featuring Obama's boobs.
Oh, he loves looking at Obama's body.
So we have the entire Crowder experience here, some weird sort of
gay
stuff, and then supporting Israel. But here he is. This is from his very first video.
Manages to keep a very small, unattractively frail stature while maintaining virtually zero muscle mass whatsoever. I guess those cigarettes are catching up with him. Here's to hoping you don't fall off the wagon again, big guy. In case some of you out there don't know where I stand, go Team Israel! To Israel, listen, despite current trends or political winds, just know that you guys have some serious allies here in the States, and we love you, we support you, and Godspeed.
That needs to be a drop, by the way.
Isn't that crazy?
Go Team Israel! And he did the power salute too. Go on, Brandon.
No, it's just surprising. He's like a Manchurian candidate.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so funny. I just thought it was so funny when he said earlier, he did his little addendum to the conservative audience watching his show. I know it's uncouth to go after Tucker Carlson. It's not very popular to do. And it's like, dude, you're saying that while defending Israel? It's like, what?
and I'll just say his little thing of, look, I don't want to give them billions of dollars, but I do want them to be an ally. This is what you're allied with, Stephen.
Yeah.
You're allied with Israelis taking over all of the Holy Lands from the books that you purportedly live your life by, with brutal force, with guns, with rifles, giving settlers like Smotrich rifles to go and just murder people in the streets. And you've had multiple churches bombed. I mean, that's the other thing they don't even get into, because that's what Crowder's audience, like, if they heard like that woman say, yes, Israel is intentionally targeting churches, which they are. They have bombed churches. Why haven't we heard about that?
Well, I think one thing you have to understand about people like Stephen Crowder too, which I think not something he's going to articulate for his audience, because not everyone in his audience will feel this way. A lot of people feel like, Christianity is synonymous with whiteness. That's why like Jesus is portrayed as white. And so for a portion of his audience who are Christian, it's going to be hard for them to believe that there could be Arab Christians, because we've homogenized that entire region to be like Muslim, to justify like this bombing of them, because being a Muslim is like being a barbarian. And so for some people who find out in his audience that there are Christians there, this is going to be their first time even imagining that there could be like an Arab Christian. And for some people in his audience, they won't even be able to bridge that gap. They won't be able to understand it. So he's relying, I think, on his audience being very, very dumb and having been fed a very, very steady diet of like dehumanizing propaganda about the Middle East. And part of that propaganda is to make them seem as alien to your average suburban like Westerner as possible. Like they can't be Christian. They can't have families. They can't have women who have rights. They must just be an entirely barbaric like region.
Yeah.
Let's just play a little bit more of this interview with the nun here, because this is I think a key question that what Crowder's like, well, it's all the Muslims that are driving the Christians out and that sort of thing. This is a very important question.
Week, while they have swimming pools in their settlements and green plush grass that Christian Zionists are paying for.
Have you, a lot of Christians in the Holy Land. How many support the government of Israel? Do you know?
The Palestinians within Israel?
Yeah. Christians support the government of Israel.
I don't know that they would be any that really would. What's the especially now? I mean, they're literally throwing out Palestinian representatives.
So in the U.S., there's a sense that Christians support this program.
Of course not. And to the when I first moved there in '98, there was hope for peace, and there was a much stronger peace movement within Israel. People who recognized not just a cold peace, but that we can live together, and we should work towards that. But that's certainly been abolished.
It's just so strange.
There you go.
None of the Christians in the Holy Land support Israel. Christians in what? Denton? Where's Crowder living these days? Texas?
Yeah.
They love Israel.
Also a lot of Westerners have been fed like a very like vulgar understanding of Judeo-Christianity, which is entirely meant to sell an evangelical Christian
Zionism.
Zionism, like evangelical Zionism, as opposed to understanding like Abrahamic religions, which would include like, Islam.
Yep.
Well, very hilarious stuff by Stephen. I'm sure that if he wants, he can get some of that Sweet Israel MAGA money that seems like there's a lot of folks auditioning for. All right, guys, I'm sorry. No more time for calls, unfortunately. Going to read some items and get out of here. Such a terrible timeline when we have to agree with Tucker recently, says Godspeed, you majority reporter. I know. Cole from Below the Rock. Sure, there are Christians in Gaza, but they're brown, so they're inherently less valuable to the Christians over here to the right.
That's really, the white supremacy angle of it is very clear.
Zionism is a white supremacist ideology. Mr. Global South says, craziest thing happened to me yesterday. I got my 3 times Trump voting fascist father to defend Bill Clinton. Oh my God. Was it Epstein related? Lydia Rose, kudos, Emma. This is a great illustration of 2 sides of the same argument on the right. Well done. Well, I got to give credit to Matt on that, not myself. Company Town, he says, as cathartic as it is to imagine bad people being punished, we have to preserve the humanity of all people. This is a good reminder for me who's been having some fantasies recently. No bad deed demotes someone from human to non-human. Pretending that bad people are indistinguishable from good people shifts the focus from actions to character. It's not illegal to be an asshole, and thinking you're one of the good ones stops you from recognizing the bad in yourself. Alessandra Portland says, Brandon, I hope you're having a great trip, but come back soon. We miss you.
Oh, I miss you all too. I didn't want to put that into the YouTube post, but I do.
Oh. We miss you too.
I'm the first. I'm the first streamer who's going to have a stronger parasocial relationship with each and every one of my viewers than they have with me. I'm already stalking a good proportion of them, like actively, like at least 35%.
If you become if you subscribe to the Discourse, Brandon will stalk you. That can be your.
Oh no, that's a free. That's a
freebie. Brick City Born, people using the wrong bathroom on many occasions by mistake, due out of order, long lines, kids with opposite gender parents, etc. This is a basic human need. Anyone who cannot respect anyone needing to use a facility should be the ones not allowed to use public ones. Yeah.
DSA had gender neutral bathrooms.
Oh yes, they did. Yeah, it's
nobody died.
Yes, I know. I mean, like in New York City, they're so common, and it's just like I'm not really thinking about the person next to me. But it seems like right wingers are. All right, 3 more.
Also, the women's bathroom is often much more crowded than the men's, so it probably helps. It definitely helps women if they're allowed to go into the men's in case of overflow.
Not Nick Fuentes says someone investigate Steven Crowder's payroll to see if he's indeed paid for by AIPAC.
That's the thing is he doesn't need it. Steven Crowder is an evangelical Christian Zionist. He's been groomed toward that for his entire life by his dad.
Jim from Pennsylvania. We have it on good progressive authority that Tucker Carlson lives in a quaint and humble cabin in Maine. And the final I am of the day.
Yeah, it's like Henry David Thoreau.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I wish I lived deliberately.
The final I am of the day. Milo. I come from a family of Baha'is. Am I saying that correctly? I'm sorry. If I'm not. I've only seen it written. Who flew Iran due to religious persecution. Our major place of worship happens to be in Haifa, Israel. When Baha'is go on pilgrimage there, they're highly advised not to proselytize or talk openly about their religion, presumably because no one would want Israelis to even ever consider converting. For those of us from Iran, this is very familiar because we were also told to shut up about our beliefs in public. Just an interesting similarity. Well said. All right, guys. Appreciate you all. Binder, Brandon, Matt, Brian. Love it. Appreciate you all. We will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get